Yankees and Mets fans have had this date circled in the calendar for months. It's the first Subway Series since Juan Soto switched sides.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, there's nothing like a good Subway series, but this one is a little bit special, a little bit unique, because unlike Subway series of the past, where it was just about saying who was the best team in New York at a given point in time, this series is all about one man, and that's Juan Soto. He is going into a building that he was recently adored in, a place where he had Yankees fans dreaming about the next decade of Yankees baseball. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, a duo that was just perfect together, too good to even comprehend how you could have two hitters that good in the same lineup. They rode the wave all the way to the World Series with Juan Soto playing a huge part in the playoffs. When Aaron Judge went a little bit silent, it was Soto that hit the big home run that delivered the first World Series appearance to Yankee fans since 2009. And then Steve Cohen got in the mix, David Stearns, in this offseason. They flipped the script on Yankees fans, and they're going to be ready to let Juan Soto hear it. He said it in the New York Post. It's going to be 50,000 against one. I think one thing that Soto isn't factoring into his math there, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty of Mets fans in that building as well that will still be supporting Soto and hoping that he gives us all a special moment. This is a special player who typically rises to big moments. That's why he's been as good in the playoffs as he's been in the regular season throughout his career. At 20 years old, he was helping lead a team to the World Series. He's not going to get fazed by it. And if anything, this can bring out the best in Juan Soto. And I'm really wondering if this might be a turning point in Juan Soto's first season with the New York Mets, where you go back to this date where Juan Soto had to square off against the Yankees. And let's pull up the stats on his season, which I'm sure are still better than many believe it is yet. His weighted runs created plus is still 140. That is WRC plus, a stat that measures hitters on a league average of 100. A 140 WRC plus is good for pretty much any hitter in baseball, not named Juan Soto, where you're actually looking at that and saying, oh, his career WRC plus is 157, so he's not quite as good as he's been. But right now, through 43 games, he's hitting 255, 380 on base, 465 slug. Last year, he hit 288, 419, 569. So a big drop off in the production that he just showed a year ago, but it's only a quarter of the season. Plenty of time for Juan Soto to get back to being the Soto that earned that $765 million contract. And this might be the series. And I love that Carlos Mendoza, despite the fact that it didn't bat Soto with the bases loaded in that game against the Pirates, I think they should have hit Jeff McNeil or Brett Beatty in that spot, because I understood what Mendoza was doing by benching Soto on Wednesday. It was to give Soto 2 days to really sit back and just not think about the perceived struggles or the things that haven't gone his way this year, but to just reset his season and use this series for ultimate motivation to have the best possible at-bats in this series and to then carry that momentum over throughout the rest of this season. And I really think that this could be that springboard where Juan Soto is going to have an amazing year in a Mets uniform, and we'll look back and say, man, aren't you glad the Mets were able to see the Yankees on May 16th? And that was the start of it all. But there's so much more that is wrapped into this series other than just how Soto has played this year and how he'll play in this series and moving forward. It's also two teams that for the first time in my lifetime, outside of, I guess, well, no, not even, because I was going to say the 2000 season where they met in the World Series, but that World Series didn't go too well for the Mets. This is the first time in my lifetime that I think the Mets are staring the Yankees eye to eye right now with where these two franchises are at. And remember, while Juan Soto got more money from the Mets, he got a very competitive offer from the Yankees. If he wanted to be a Yankee, if he wanted to spend the rest of his career in pinstripes, if he wanted to continue to be Robin to Aaron Judge's Batman, he would have been. He would have been. He chose the Mets for a reason. He chose the Mets not just because of the contract, but because of where the franchise is, because they have the wealthiest owner in the sport outside of the group that owns the Dodgers, because he knows that the Mets are going to be in it to win it every single year. And sure, the Yankees have done that for decades of always being in the mix, but they haven't won a World Series since 2009, and they don't have the same ownership that they once did, where they were going to spend atop the league no matter what. Yes, they're still spending atop the league, but are they willing to go into the tax year after year after year? Probably not. The Mets are, and that's why Juan Soto chose what has been building on the other borough in Queens, and a lot of it starts from last season. And as much as last season was this incredible year for the Yankees, and it was the Soto and Judge show, and they again rode that to the World Series. Remember, the 2024 season was a lot more about the New York Mets than the Yankees when you talk about the buzz and the fanfare and the attention, because the Mets had this magical run from 11 games under to the NLCS. And they took the Dodgers to 6 games in the NLCS. The Yankees only got to 5 in the World Series. So last year, I don't know if the Yankees were really that much better than the Mets. If those two teams squared off in the World Series, I don't know what would have happened. I can't say for sure the Mets would have won. I can't say for sure the Yankees would have won. But last year, in the first year of the David Stearns era, the Mets proved that they have the right executive, they've had the right owner, and now that collective vision can put the Mets into perennial contention. And here they are when these two teams meet up for the first time. Mets have a better record right now, marginally, but still a better record. They're in first place in the National League East, and so far this season, they have proven that everything they did last year is repeatable, that they can still manufacture pitching from thin air with this front office and the pitching lab they've established, that they still have one of the best performers in baseball in Francisco Lindor, and Pete Alonso has joined him this year as a great performer to start this season. And they got Juan Soto in the mix to take them over the top. And while he hasn't had a typical Juan Soto start, all Mets fans should care about is a Juan Soto finish of this year, and maybe this is the beginning of an extended run of Juan Soto being awesome in a Mets uniform. If you followed this guy's career, it's not unfair to expect a big moment over the next 3 days. I just can't wait to see how this story unfolds. What I want to talk about next here is which team is better right now? Who has been better up to this point in the season? Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? We'll get to all of that in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live between the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking for a last-minute ticket, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever because there's last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as game time gets closer, meaning you can always score an incredible deal. Personally, I don't get my tickets until I'm about to walk into the ballpark. And if you're trying to go to the game tonight, I advise that. I was curious. I just pulled open the app and looked, and you're not going to find a ticket under $100 for this one. This is a much anticipated game, but as the game gets closer, you will find that the tickets will drop, and you can view your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, Redeem the code Locked On MLB. That's LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. Now, who has been better this year, the Mets or the Yankees? Right now, the Mets have the better record at 28-16. The Yankees are 25-18. You look at each side of the ball, who's had the better pitching? That is also the Mets. They have a 2.84 ERA. That is the best mark in the game. The Yankees have a 3.62 ERA. That's ninth best in the game. The Mets' rotation has been better. Their bullpen's been better. When it comes to run prevention, the Mets have been a better team. But when it comes to scoring runs, the Yankees have been the best team in baseball. They lead Major League Baseball in home runs and OPS. The Dodgers are the only team that has scored more runs than the Yankees, but they've only scored 4 more runs, and they've played 1 more game than the Yankees have had. The Mets, on the other hand, are 10th in runs scored, 10th in home runs, 5th in OPS. So you look at these two teams, they're both top 10 on both sides, right? They're both top 10 in pitching and top 10 in hitting. The Mets are the best in baseball at pitching. The Yankees are the best in baseball at hitting. So it really is going to be a conversion of some different philosophies. Can the Mets, great pitching, go up against the best of the best with this Yankees lineup and come out on top? And on the other side of it, do the Yankees have good enough pitching to hold the Mets bats at bay? You look at run differential. The Yankees are plus 81 this year. The Mets are plus 65, but you also look at how they win games. The Yankees are 5-9 in one-run games. The Mets are 10-8. The Yankees are more prone or more likely to have the big blowout wins, but they also can blow a close one. The Mets are better in those close game situations, better at coming back late, better at holding on to late leads, but they haven't had as many lopsided affairs. So when it comes to how this series unfolds, the Yankees want this to be a slugfest. The Mets probably want these games to be close where they can win some games late. You look at what has made this Yankees offense so special. You can't ignore Aaron Judge. He is the best hitter on the planet, and right now it's not even close. He's hitting 412. Let me say that again. He's hitting 412. We're a quarter of the way through the year, and he's still batting over 400. He's basically getting on base at a 500 clip. It's at 497 right now. His slug is at 782. He's got 15 home runs, 41 RBIs, OPS of 1279. He's basically leading Major League Baseball in every single offensive category. It is just absurd what Judge is doing. This is the closest we have seen anyone get to that Barry Bonds status when he was with the Giants, where it was basically just don't pitch to him. And then the one pitch that he got in a given game, he hit out of the ballpark. I mean, he is becoming that level of a feared hitter. If you are squaring off, let's just say they bat Aaron Judge second and you get the leadoff guy out, do you just walk him? Seriously, do you just walk him and take your chances? Probably not. You'll probably pitch to him, but you better pitch carefully because he can make it 1-0 in a hurry. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how the Mets navigate that guy in the lineup. And so far this year, he's gotten some pretty good protection around him because there's other guys in this Yankees lineup that are hitting. Trent Grisham has been absurd. I don't even understand it because he's never been this level of a hitter. But this year, he's got 12 home runs, a 628 slug, a 995 OPS. He has been unbelievable. Ben Rice has been great as the Yankees fill-in DH with Giancarlo Stanton out. Rice has a 900 OPS and 9 home runs. Paul Goldschmidt is having a renaissance in a Yankees uniform. He's hitting 346 right now, 395 on base, 506 slug. He's got an OPS in the 900s. You have Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez, who are both over 750 with their OPS. So they're both producing. Austin Wells is at 749, but he's got 8 home runs and 28 RBIs. This is a deep and talented Yankees lineup that does have some holes in it, but also has some really high-level performers right now. It is not going to be easy for the Mets pitching staff to navigate it. I think for this season, if you were just to ask me who's got the better collection of star players, who's got the better 1 through 5, I don't know if I'm believing that Trent Grisham is this good. I don't know if I'm believing that Paul Goldschmidt's going to hit 350 this year. I think probably not. Now, I also don't think that Cody Bellinger is going to have a sub 700 OPS, but I still could make an argument that if you're just telling me put, the Mets best 3 hitters up and the Yankees best 3 hitters up, that I'd still like the Lindor, Soto, Alonso trio over Judge and pick your other 2 hitters. Right now it'd be Grisham and Rice, but throughout the season, maybe it's Goldschmidt and I don't even know who else it would be. Maybe it's Goldschmidt and Bellinger comes around, or maybe, Grisham or Rice is for real. But while I think the Mets have a better collection of 3, and if I even expanded it to 5, I still like the upside of Vientos and Nimmo. But you look at what the Yankees have done this year, there's no doubt about it. They have been better, and there's no comparison to Aaron Judge. So sure, let's just say it gets to a point where some of these other guys regress back to the mean. And maybe Juan Soto, regresses up or progresses back to his mean, his average of what he's supposed to be. And Pete Alonso stays awesome, and Lindor keeps doing what he's been doing since June of last year. I still don't even know, with Alonso, Soto, and Lindor at their best, if the Mets lineup could ever match the Yankees lineup this year if if Aaron Judge continues to do what he has so far this season. He is just that good. But I also think if we're looking at the pitching, I still believe in the Mets pitching having more staying power and being better throughout this year. The Yankees got a potential Cy Young right now, Max Fried, who's been ridiculous. Carlos Rodon has been very good as well. But the rest of the rotation has been shaky. And they don't have as much in the reserves as the Mets do when you look at some of the Mets' top pitching prospects, but also the guys that are going to come off the IL with Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea. The Yankees have Luis Gil that's supposed to come back, but they're not going to get Garrett Cole back this year. So I think when you look at who's better right now, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to get a clear-cut picture except for these series, these measuring stick moments. And then if everything breaks right for New York baseball this year, and we see these 2 teams in the World Series, and then we'll know once and for all. But right now, I look at these 2 teams. I think the Mets had the better pitching, but still have a good line. I think the Yankees have better hitting, but still have good enough pitching. And I think both of these teams are the favorites right now to win their respective divisions and to be a powerhouse that's going to be a real tough outcome October. I guess the one thing that the Yankees have on their side, if you were to pick one of these teams to win the World Series this year, it's just the fact that their road's going to be easier. They don't have the Dodgers in their league. They don't have the Padres in their league. They don't have the Phillies or the Braves in their division. And yes, I know the Braves haven't gotten off to a great start this year, but we still know that the Braves can never be counted out. The Yankees, sure, they got a Red Sox team that looks better than last year. You don't know what is going on with the Orioles, but they're a disaster. We'll see if they ever can figure their stuff out. The Rays are right now, a 500 team, or have been a 500 team more often than not over the last couple of years. They haven't been a powerhouse in a little bit. And then, the Blue Jays, what are you going to, buy into there? So if you look at just the division, the Yankees should run away with the AL East. You look at the other top teams in the American League. Who are they? Right now, it's the Detroit Tigers. And while I think the Tigers are actually pretty good and probably will win the AL Central this year, I don't know if what they're doing right now is sustainable. I don't know which team out west is going to establish themselves as the favorite out there. Is it going to be the Mariners? Are the Astros still going to find their way by the end of the season? Could it be the Rangers' year? Who knows? But if you look at the National League, you can rattle off 7 teams that are real threats. So I think right now at this very moment, these are 2 franchises that are really close together. The Yankees have an easier path because the American League is just more wide open. The Mets might have a better direction long term with their ability to spend, their rising farm system, and having Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor locked up in their primes, a duo that right now the Yankees can't match because they have one superstar. He just might be the best, or is the best hitter in baseball, and could continue to be for who knows how many more years moving forward. So this is a fun matchup. It's going to be awesome to see these 2, top teams go head to head. Last year, the Mets did great in the Subway Series. They played 4 games. They won them all. Can they carry that over this year? I want to talk about the specifics of this individual series, who's pitching each game, how will these teams match up. We're going to go through it all in just a minute. First, though, another quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game because before tip-off and live, you're going to find player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. So fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Maybe you want to look at the MLB action tonight. Maybe you want to look at this series, Mets versus Yankees, and look at each game, see if there's a matchup that you like. Maybe you think Tylor Megill is going to strike out a lot of Yankees tonight, or maybe you are just buying in on Juan Soto and you want to look at his home run props. You can find all of that over at FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up because when you head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks on the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways, and you get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Looking at this series and the pitching matchups that we have in store, I'm nervous about the final one because the Mets are going to face off against the final boss in the last game of this series, and that is Max Fried. But before that, we'll talk about tonight's matchup. Tylor Megill versus Carlos Rodon. Rodon has had a good season so far, 3.29 ERA. Megill, slight edge in the ERA department. He's at 3.10. A little bit nervous about Megill just because last couple starts have not been as good as he looked earlier this season. And I just don't know what version of Tylor Megill you're going to get in this game. It's a good Yankees lineup. It's going to be tough to navigate. How is he going to square up against Aaron Judge? Does he just go after him? Does he pitch around him? Does he get himself into some trouble from walking batters? I am very curious if Megill can rise to this moment. Last year, when he squared off against the Dodgers, a lot of people would have thought, oh, man, it was probably in like September when it happened, right? But it was, how is Tylor Megill going to fare against this good Dodgers lineup? And I think it was like 7 shutout. I mean, he had a really good start against a great team last year with the Dodgers. So I'm not going to count Megill out, but I am curious how he's going to step up. And I feel the same way about the second game of this series, Griffin Canning versus Clark Schmidt. Canning has been ridiculously good this year, 2.36 ERA. Clark Schmidt, 4.73 ERA. You would look at that as a big advantage Mets, and I do think that the matchup against Clark Schmidt is a good one for this Mets lineup. How is Canning going to hold up against this Yankees team in that ballpark? I think this is a real moment where the Mets starting pitching can kind of prove how good they really are when they're going up against what has been the best lineup in baseball this season. Granted, a lot of that is Aaron Judge, but as I talked about in the last segment, I mean, I reeled off 5 guys that were all producing outside of just Aaron Judge. So it's not going to be easy. It's good the Mets have essentially had 2 days to rest their bullpen because, on Wednesday, it was Genesis Cabrera for 2 innings and Daniel Nunez for 1. I will note that the Mets did make a trade today to pick up a reliever that, depending on who you ask, and I guess not who you ask, it's just depending on sometimes these things that don't make sense. You end up finding out the Mets knew something that we didn't, but they acquired a left-hander reliever, Jose Castillo, who is out of options. So if he's out of options, how are the Mets going to bring him on the roster? And he's not a guy that's had a lot of success. This season, you look at what he did with the Diamondbacks, it was not good. There's a reason why he was, just let go because he really struggled. He gave up 3 runs against the Mets a little over a week ago now. You look at what he did in the minor leagues this year, that was good. His minor league numbers across, let's see how many games it was. It was AAA Reno, 5 games, he pitched to a 1.69 ERA, comes up to pitch with the big league club, 11.37 ERA in 6 1/3 innings pitched. So how are the Mets going to get him on their active roster? Is this, basically DFAing Genesis Cabrera for Jose Castillo? And if you do that, why? Castillo has not had a lot of success, not only this year, he's got a career 5.21 ERA, and only 46 2/3 innings pitched. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. Are they trying to get an extra lefty in their bullpen for this series? Maybe that's the case, in which case Daniel Nunez might be heading right back to Syracuse because he has the options. So he's already in an option year. The Mets optioning him at the start of the season. He can get optioned again, and you still have 3 more opportunities to bring him up throughout the season or bring him up, send him down. So maybe that's the move where you're just seeing the Mets stack a couple lefties for this series, and Jose Castillo was the best guy that they could pick up. Maybe they felt better about Jose Castillo than they felt about Anthony Gassé or bringing up a top prospect, which would be a horrible way to break in Felipe De La Cruz in the big leagues. Hey, go up against the Yankees. I don't know. It's an interesting move. So be curious to see what the corresponding move is for their active roster if he is brought aboard. The only reason why I say sometimes these things are different than they appear is because maybe the Mets are picking him up to stash him in AAA, and then they're going to DFA him, which would be a strange way to go about it. I really don't know. This is a confusing acquisition to me. So we're going to see what the roster move is. So far, the one move they had to make was to add him to the 40. So Kevin Herget got DFA'd to bring in Jose Castillo. We'll see how if he's on the roster, factors into the series. But getting back to more of the point, when you look at how the Mets are going to combat this Yankees lineup, the bullpen's going to be big. So the fact that Edwin Diaz and Reed Garrett and Ryan Stanek, all those guys, Huascar Braziman, just got multiple days of rest, Max Kranick as well, Jose Budo. It is an opportunity for Carlos Mendoza to really deploy any of his arms in any situation. It's all going to begin with those starting pitchers. Can they get 5 good innings out of Megill and Canning? To me, if there was ever a time where I'm okay with 5 and dive, it's this series. If you get through 5 innings with a lead with those guys and you're turning it over to your bullpen because you feel better about some of the matchups you can play there, I'm all for it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these first 2 games go, because while I think David Peterson is a very good starting pitcher that just did go toe-to-toe with Paul Skeens, Max Fried's been unbelievable this year. Fried's got a 1.11 ERA. He right now should be the favorite for the American League Cy Young. Actually, that's not true because Tarek Skubal still exists. Skubal's the favorite. I actually just did an article for Just Baseball, the Cy Young odds. For me, Fried was the best bet that I like just because of the odds. I believe he was like plus 400, where Skubal was like maybe plus 145 or something like that. Skubal's still the heavy favorite. And Fried, I could just see a narrative built around him with his first year in pinstripes, the first Juan Soto replacement as far as the money that was allocated after the Yankees didn't get Soto, and then Garrett Cole goes down and Max Fried steps in to be the ace and has a career year. Like, you can see it all unfolding for Fried to win his first Cy Young this year. And so if the Mets go into that final game of this series in a rubber match and it's Fried versus Peterson, I'm going to be a little bit nervous about the Mets' ability to get anything off of Fried. I have to check. From my memory, Max Fried has been great against the Mets throughout his career, but I could absolutely be wrong on that. I'm going to pull open his career splits real quick. Kind of funny when you think about what that matchup will look like in his eyes as a guy that, has a lot of familiarity with the Mets. He hated the Mets long before he became a Yankee. We'll say that for sure. And so I'm curious what he's done against the Mets throughout his career. We're scrolling. I'm getting there. Opponent. All right, let's see. It's probably good. His career ERA against the Mets, 2.48. I thought so. 2.48 ERA in 109 innings pitched, 113 strikeouts. Yeah, he's been awesome against the Mets throughout his career. No surprises there. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're the Mets in this series, win the first 2 games, make it easy on yourselves, and see if you can then, really make some waves if you get to that point. You can beat Fried for a sweep if it gets that far. But If this turns into a rubber match and it is Fried versus Peterson, the Mets will have their work cut out for them. But you never know. That might be the time where Juan Soto delivers that huge, huge moment. It's going to be so much fun to watch these two teams go up against each other, because the reality of this series and just where baseball is at in New York, this is the first time where the Mets really don't feel like little brother anymore, where the Mets are in a position where they got the guy and they stole the guy from the Yankees, and they just went to the NLCS last year, and they've built on that momentum, and they have the executive you want. Like, everything has fallen in place for the New York Mets. And here are Yankees fans who, Juan Soto lives rent free in their mind. They're nonstop, throwing up, oh, Trent Grisham's been better than Soto this year through 40 games. And, you look at, the the way that they're celebrating Juan Soto having a plain look on his face when Francisco Lindor hits a home run and Soto's about to go into an at bat, so he doesn't freak out the same way that he did when last year he hit a home run in front of Aaron Judge. I wonder why he was a little more happy when it was him hitting the home run instead of watching a guy in front of him hit a home run and he's got an at bat to try to do the same thing. I wonder why there might be a difference there, but those are the videos that circulate as Yankee fans are grasping at different reasons to explain what is inexplicable to them, that somebody chose the Mets over them. And that's not going to go away, because Juan Soto is going to be, he had that 1 year in a Yankees uniform where they got a taste of it, and the rest of his career is in a Mets uniform. And he is going to be the biggest figure in New York baseball for the next 15 years because he has the longest runway. I mean, right now you might say he's the third best player in New York, because I'd argue that Lindor is the Mets' best player and Judge is probably the best player in baseball, not named Shohei Ohtani, and is the best hitter in baseball. But Juan Soto has so much time on his hands. If he doesn't get it done in this Subway Series, he's got countless ones ahead of him. But I feel like he's going to get it done. I think it's going to be absolute theater watching every single one of Juan Soto's at-bats in this series, seeing the way the crowd is going to be at an all-time high when it comes to anticipation on every pitch, because the Mets fans are going to be rooting for something big to happen, and the Yankees fans are going to be hoping that something big doesn't happen against them. It's going to be fun, man. Subway Series. Can't wait to cover every single game of this series. I'll have shows going all weekend long. Make sure you follow, rate, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, you can find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that takes you across Major League Baseball and touches on all of the most notable games with expert analysis from all of our local experts on each team. Check out Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel, as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.